Here's a question for you. Should Grandma smoke pot?
I was just superficially aware of it.
I had no knowledge at all of it, I would say.
I'm interested in medical marijuana.
There's sort of a sea change going on in this nation, and it has to do with marijuana.
You know, at old age, they say that by the time you're 75, you have at least 4 chronic diseases to deal with.
My son's taken 25,000 pills and he's 5 years old. Well, things have changed since I started using medical cannabis.
I discovered quite by accident that cannabis or marijuana worked better than the drugs and narcotics I was getting.
It's a whole new world. It gave me hope.
I'm Robert Platshorn, author of Black Tuna Diaries, and the man who spent 30 years in prison for marijuana, more than anyone in America. Many of you are familiar with my story from the movie Square Grouper, which was on Showtime. The things you're about to see will certainly surprise you and most likely shock many of you. For the past 70 years, you've been bombarded with lies, carefully crafted propaganda.
And more vicious, more deadly is the menace of marijuana.
In order to sustain a multi-billion-dollar drug war against the most valuable plant on the planet. A war that helped no one, but has destroyed millions of American lives.
Our government has created the perfect system for themselves. They create a cycle where they made this illegal. They then fund it with the privatization of prisons. Privatization of prisons and mandatory minimums for sentences came out about hand in hand. That's another billion-dollar industry. So the law enforcement have an incentive to keep these things illegal. The majority of arrests in this country for drugs are from marijuana, simple possession of marijuana. There's an arrest approximately every 37 seconds in this country for cannabis. Every 37 seconds.
My sentence was 64 years. There's no way to describe that. There's no way to explain what that does to you.
We're more apt in this country to cut our teachers and our educational system than our law enforcement system for something that has been proven to not harm a single soul.
President Jimmy Carter had made inferences that he wouldn't be opposed to legalizing it.
At a House hearing today, the Carter administration favored easing the penalties they face for that use.
We have yet to find a serious medical consequence related to marijuana
just
smoking.
One more question. Somewhat to my surprise, we have not found serious health consequences in approximately $20 million of research in the last 5 years.
But the thing that we do know, though, is that we will be saving the lives and careers of a lot of young people that would otherwise be destroyed by maintaining criminal penalties and putting people in jail for possession.
People who use marijuana are not criminals. The real criminals are people who are opposing legislative and social change.
The people you need to talk to about medical marijuana is not the people who are already predisposed to smoke it, but to talk to the senior citizens, and you launched the Silver Tour.
The Silver Tour isn't a lecture or a panel or a class. It's a show. And we go in, and first they get to meet and hear a couple of doctors.
Used in respectable moderation, marijuana is absolutely not addictive. No more
who
addictive
actually
than
treat with marijuana and have done research for 10 or 12 years. Then they get to meet patients. People like Irv Rosenfeld.
It's worked for me. It saved my life.
Who's gotten medical marijuana from the federal government.
I get it shipped to me once every 25 days.
The whole time I was in prison.
Wow.
The federal government sent him 300 joints a month to treat his tumors and still maintain, of course, it has no medical value.
It's been called by many names: hemp, ganja, pot, weed, marijuana. But they all have the same uses. Most importantly, medicine.
Cannabis has been a medicine now for about 3,000 years. In the United States, it only hasn't been a medicine for the past 70 years.
Released in 1937 as Tell Your Children, this film implored parents to warn their children against the devil weed. It was commissioned by the newly appointed head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, Harry Anslinger, an avowed racist.
Physicians in the United States knew the medicine as cannabis, and by using marijuana, he sort of did an end run around the medical community.
Later released as Reefer Madness, the film depicted smokers committing absurd acts of violence.
You want to kill me? Take it easy, kid.
Fired after 62 years, Anslinger retired in shame to well-deserved obscurity.
You government men have got to find some way to put an end to it.
But do you realize that marijuana is not like other forms of dope? You see, it grows wild in almost every state in the Union.
Marijuana is the oldest medicine known to man. It was found in ancient Egypt. It's been found in Jerusalem. It's mentioned in the Bible. And you're about to learn the history of this amazing plant.
Cannabis has existed as medicine for centuries.
Long ago, when these ancient Grecian temples were new, hemp was already old in the service of mankind. For thousands of years even then, this plant had been grown for cordage and coarse cloth in China and elsewhere in the East.
Betsy Ross made the first flag from hemp. Our Declaration of Independence was written on hemp. Until the Anslinger onslaught that outlawed hemp in 1937, American farmers grew and paid tax on it. For American doctors, it was the first choice to treat over 100 ailments.
It's been a medicine a whole lot longer than it hasn't been.
To halt the increasing use of hemp to make paper and protect his huge pulp forest holdings, William Randolph Hearst used his powerful newspaper empire to aid Anslinger in outlawing the devil weed. By the start of World War II, our government desperately needed hemp for the war effort.
When the woody core breaks away readily, like this, the hemp is about ready to take up and bind into bundles,
urging our farmers to grow once again.
Just as in the days when old Ironside sailed the seas victorious, with her hempen shrouds and hempen sails. Hemp for victory.
The government later denied that this film had ever been made.
Public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
President Nixon declared the war on drugs. Despite his own commission's recommendation that marijuana was harmless, Nixon ignored their findings.
They started to tell us, well, we can't legalize marijuana because it destroys your brain cells. And of course, then we found out it actually stimulates the growth of brain cells. And people like Carl Sagan and Margaret Mead and lots of others had been proponents of marijuana, and it wasn't hard to figure out that it didn't make people stupid.
A recent Gallup survey showed that more than half those polled favor removing criminal penalties for possessing small amounts of marijuana. A number of states is considering doing that, and 10 of them already have. Oregon was the first.
In the United States, it's illegal for a person to use it. Why aren't doctors allowed to study it?
It's been almost 45 years since I did the first double-blind human experiments with marijuana. And when that work was published in 1968, I predicted that marijuana would be legalized within 5 years. And that was before we knew anything about the endocannabinoid system or the vast medical potential of marijuana. The traditional uses were known about an anti-nausea effect and possibly an effect with asthma, glaucoma, muscle spasticity, but really nothing about these tremendous potentials with cancer and very serious diseases.
Very safe and effective medicine that's able to uniquely tap into our endocannabinoid system, which interestingly and ironically regulates everything in our body.
Physiologically, our bodies and our cannabinoid receptors are set up to help us manage cancer, perhaps itself, but certainly the symptoms associated with cancer. So if the endocannabinoids work, then I would suggest that probably the plant cannabinoids may as well.
The incidence of Alzheimer's in individuals who were smoking marijuana in the 1960s are not getting Alzheimer's today at the rate that they should be. They're sort of standing out. So if you were lucky enough to either be arthritic or someone who smoked marijuana and you were bathing your brain in anti-inflammatories, you were in groups of, lucky groups of people who did not get Alzheimer's disease.
There's certainly some evidence that it's helping some people treat their psychoses. Certainly epilepsy,
certainly anxiety, certainly PTSD.
Now, another disease, which is an autoimmune disease, is diabetes type 1. It most definitely suppresses the disease.
The pharmaceutical industry is ripping us off, and I think that's a disgusting thing to do to the population, and I have no problem with signing off on legalizing marijuana.
And I think it should be the option for a doctor to give somebody something that can benefit them and not tear apart their bodies.
Stay with me, because in the next segment, what you're going to learn could change your entire attitude about marijuana.
I don't believe in drugs, but then I've also never been someone who suffered from pain.
Please sponsor more airings of this show by becoming a member of the Silver Tour. It only takes a handful of $50 memberships to air Grandma 2 more times, and that can pay for 4 more airings, and that could pay for 8 more, and so on until Grandma reaches millions. With your support, we can air this show hundreds of times on regional and national television. I urge you, join at the highest level you can afford. Join for as little as $25 and receive this beautiful Silver Tour pin and my heartfelt thanks. Become a Silver Tour member for $50 and I'll send you the membership pin and a DVD of this show. If you can join at the $100 gold member level, I'll thank you with the pin, the DVD, and a signed copy of my memoir, Black Tuna Diaries. $1,000 platinum membership can sponsor as many as 10 regional airings of Grandma. Your thanks is all of the above gifts, plus a signed copy of the hit movie, Square Grouper, that tells my story, and something very, very special. One of Irv Rosenfeld's federal medical marijuana delivery cans. These cans have sold at auction for up to $5,000 and are a terrific collectible you can show to all of your friends. I urge you, go to thesilvertour.org and become a member right now, or send a check or money order to the address on your screen. Together, we can end cannabis prohibition in less time than you can imagine.
A recent study in the Journal of the American Medical Association concludes, our findings suggest that occasional use of marijuana may not be associated with adverse consequences on pulmonary function.
There's 2 plants that people like to smoke. The first, of course, is tobacco. It causes cancer, COPD, emphysema. The other is cannabis. It's the oldest medicine known to man. It's a lung expander. And today, it's used in the treatment of dozens of different conditions. Tobacco's legal. Marijuana's illegal. Does that make sense to you?
And in 1971, I discovered quite by accident that medical marijuana worked best for my bone disorder. I have bone tumors all throughout my body. I was born with it, diagnosed at age 10, and told I may not outlive my teenage years. Had many dangerous operations, and I was on all kinds of narcotics, from morphine to Quaalude to Valium. And then quite by accident in college, I discovered the benefits of medical cannabis. That it worked better as a muscle relaxant, anti-inflammatory, and for my pain than any other medicine. But it was illegal. So I took on the federal government. In 1972, I started. In 1982, I won. It took me 10 years. But I became the second person in the United States that the federal government grows my marijuana and supplies me on a daily basis. They put 300 cigarettes to a cookie tin, they freeze dry it, and that's how I get it. I'm in good shape. Okay, I have a severe bone disorder. I have over 200 bone tumors in my body. And if you look at me, I'm 59 years old. I don't look it. I don't take any prescription drugs. I haven't since 1990. All I take is medical cannabis. That, my friends, is a fountain of youth.
Could you imagine your kids having seizures every single day, being in pain 12 to 14 hours a day, crying, screaming? My son's tried 12 different medications from around the world, 2 that weren't FDA approved, and they didn't work. They just caused more problems. My son's taken 25,000 pills and he's 5 years old. Well, things have changed since I started using medical cannabis. I got him down from 22 pills a day down to 4 right now. He's functioning better. I have documentation. I have video evidence of him changing as a human being. His eye contact's getting better. I get emails from his teachers telling me how good he's doing. When he looks in my eyes and I tell him, give me a kiss, he could give me a kiss now. Can you imagine your kid not giving you a kiss?
One night at 3 a.m., I woke up and I didn't make it to the washroom. I'm lying in my own, pardon the expression, crap. And I thought, I can't stand this. This isn't me. If I had a gun, it would have been over at that point. I saw this booklet that says multiple sclerosis, medical marijuana. Took a puff for the first time in my life. And from that time on, I have felt as if I had something to help me keep control of a body that can go out of control. It's a whole new world. It gave me hope. And that's really what it amounts to. I'm sure I'm not alone.
About a year ago, while I was on a book tour, I was on the West Coast and met a boy by the name of Joey Perez, little 10-year-old boy. Joey is autistic, and as he got older, he got more violent. He was never able to communicate. He was 10 years old. He would beat his head against the wall. He had broken several bones, and he no longer had any desire to eat. And within about 6 weeks, he had lost half his body weight. He was down to about 47 pounds. His mom took him to every doctor that she could find, and they tried every treatment known. They told her there was nothing more they could do for Joey, and they told her to prepare herself because his organs were beginning to shut down, and he wouldn't last much longer. She called Dr. Lester Grinspoon at Harvard, and Lester told her, here's what I want you to do. Once every 2 days, give Joey a magic brownie. And she gave it to him. Now, I'm not a doctor, and you notice during this show, I've never actually talked medicine. But you don't have to be a doctor to appreciate what happens when you take pot. Well, the first thing that happens is you get the munchies. Joey got hungry, and he ate. He not only ate, he enjoyed eating. Within 6 weeks, he had regained most of his body weight. What's the second thing that happens for a marijuana user? It's the greatest violence inhibitor in the world. Joey became a cooled out kid. There was no more violence, no more beating his head against the wall. Joey, for the first time in his life, began to communicate and use words. And he started to play with other children. But you know what? If you live in a state that does not have medical marijuana, and Joey was your child, you'd have a terrible decision to make. Do you want to try it? Maybe save his life? And possibly go to jail? You know, if you get caught, they're going to take him away from you. And that's a terrible decision. If he's your child, your grandchild, your niece, your nephew, or your neighbor's child. And I certainly don't advocate anybody breaking the law. Help me change the law in my state, your state, in fact, in the United States. Go to our website. Up in the left-hand corner, put in your zip code. You'll get the name, address, phone number, and if it's available, email of your senator, your representative, both federal and state. You'll find sample petitions, sample letters, but better than that, write your own letter and write it in your own handwriting, because when they start getting those letters, they start paying attention. A lot of states right now have decriminalization or medical marijuana or even legalization on the ballot. And all you have to do is exercise your right to vote.
I have an obligation to be much more supportive, and I am willing to go talk to the people we vote for to express my opinion.
I know that there's a subject whether or not to have marijuana legalized, especially for medical reasons, and I have some really close friends and family who have had cancer, and I know it's been really important to ease their pain and to help with them, so I'm really a big supporter of it.
I would look forward to trying to try it, but I don't know where in heaven's name I would get a hold of any to try.
From 1850 to 1942, marijuana was easily obtained at the pharmacy and listed in the United States Pharmacopoeia.
Please sponsor more airings of this show by becoming a member of the Silver Tour. It only takes a handful of $50 memberships to air Grandma 2 more times and that can pay for 4 more airings, and that could pay for 8 more, and so on until Grandma reaches millions. With your support, we can air this show hundreds of times on regional and national television. I urge you, join at the highest level you can afford. Join for as little as $25 and receive this beautiful Silver Tour pin and my heartfelt thanks. Become a Silver Tour member for $50 and I'll send you the membership pin and a DVD of this show. If you can join at the $100 gold member level, I'll thank you with the pin, the DVD, and a signed copy of my memoir, Black Tuna Diaries. $1,000 platinum membership can sponsor as many as 10 regional airings of Grandma. Your thanks is all of the above gifts, plus a signed copy of the hit movie, Square Grouper, that tells my story, and something very, very special. One of Irv Rosenfeld's federal medical marijuana delivery cans. These cans have sold at auction for up to $5,000 and are a terrific collectible you can show to all of your friends. I urge you, go to thesilvertour.org and become a member right now, or send a check or money order to the address on your screen. Together, we can end cannabis prohibition in less time than you can imagine.
So you've been going around to different senior communities and talking directly to people. I would guess that many of them are aging beatniks or hippies and are familiar with pot. But are they familiar with the medical purposes for it?
No. Outside of the 18 now legal states in Washington, D.C., people know little or nothing about medical marijuana. They don't know that it was made illegal, not because it was bad, but to stop hemp.
It's a plant. I think that's the one thing we want to say over and over. This is a plant. This is America, a free country. We are locking up people for growing a plant.
A lot of other countries, I think 30-some different countries in the world grow industrial hemp. But we're the primary market for almost every country in the world. The United States, we're the market. And so what an opportunity we're giving away, we're throwing away by not being a part of this industry. And industrial hemp is one more commodity that can help me make some money on my farm.
Hemp has over 25,000 uses, including home insulation and superior strength car panels.
Prohibition creates crime and violence in our society that need not exist except for the fact that we have chosen, get this, we've chosen a policy of prohibition rather than a policy of regulation control. And right now we're wasting all these resources and we're putting people whose only decision is to use an illegal drug, we're putting those people in jail today. And that's just insane.
And cannabis is a natural plant in its natural form that grows from the ground, that has never caused anyone a harm. Yet, that's the biggest reason why it's continued to be illegal.
In Israel, Dr. Raphael McCoolum has devoted his life to unlocking the medical miracles just waiting to be discovered in the cannabis plant.
THC is actually very valuable in a lot of diseases. It is used in rheumatoid arthritis and many other inflammatory diseases. So it can be used and it should be used.
I'd like to try it. I would really like to. I have many medical problems. I don't like the fact that you have to smoke it. If I could take it in a pill or some other way, chocolate candy.
Foods made with hemp and cannabis are in high demand everywhere they're legally available.
If Americans ate more hemp, it would help correct the imbalance of essential fatty acids in their diet. I think we'd see a reduction of inflammatory diseases. I think this would be a benefit at lowering heart attack risk, cancer risks. I think it can also do a lot for mental emotional health because the omega-3s are really necessary for proper brain function.
I saw my grandparents use it, I saw my great-grandparents use it, and it's amazing. My great-grandmother lived to be 110. She used to use the marijuana in her tea, in her food.
I'll spoon out a little bit of the canna butter, about that much as a dose is worth for the night.
CBDs seem to help my seizures. I'm not using it to get any psychological effects off of it. I'm just eating the butter raw with bread. I used to be on approximately 14 different prescriptions. I would still have up to 12 seizures a day. No more.
I never want to see compromised the capacity of people to use herbal marijuana, whether it's because the drug that they've come up with is much more expensive, or it doesn't do as well, or whatever the reason. People should always have herbal marijuana available to them without any constraints from the law.
I started taking marijuana because I could not sleep, days without sleep.
I use cannabis for chronic back pain.
You know, this is a needed medicine, and we didn't ask for these disorders. We didn't wake up one day and say, gosh, if I could just get AIDS, then I could use marijuana to take away the nausea from the AZT and the other drugs I have to take. And nobody asks for disorders, but they just happen. When they do, all patients really care about is getting the best medicine possible.
A lot of research on the website at thesilvertour.org. I've known, obviously, about marijuana for years. I didn't know that it will impede the growth of a tumor. I had no idea, because they don't tell you that.
Alcohol and cigarettes are the biggest gateway drugs we have. In 2009, from chronic liver disease, 15,000 people died in the U.S. from alcohol. 1 year. Anyone even want to try to guess how many people die from cigarettes every year? It's 1 out of how many? 1 out of 5 deaths in this country is attributed to cigarettes. That's like 443,000 people a year, and not one single person has ever died from marijuana. I would take out half of the drugs in my prescription book if I could write for medical marijuana.
People who are going through chemo and people who have all types of other problems where they get a tremendous amount of relief from marijuana, and to deny those people freedom of pain, that's what's criminal.
I'd rather see people in jail for misusing alcohol than marijuana. I believe it's much more dangerous.
I hope you've enjoyed our show and learned something important, because sooner or later, you're going to be asked to vote to end cannabis prohibition or to make medical marijuana available to the patients in your state. If you believe that you now have the information and the maturity to make an informed decision, you might want to make your opinion known to your state and federal representatives. According to New York Supreme Court Justice Gustin Reichbach, this is not a law and order issue. It is a medical and it's a human rights issue. If you lived in Belgium, England, Holland, Argentina, Israel, or a host of other countries, your doctor can legally prescribe and treat you with this natural, effective, and safe medication. In 17 of our states and in our nation's capital, a doctor can recommend medical marijuana. In fact, in a recent Rasmussen poll, 56% of Americans have declared in favor of legalizing marijuana. There is no need to break the law when you can change it.
Visit thesilvertour.org.
When they come out of the show, they invariably say, look, I believed what I saw on TV all my life, what they told me in school, but now I think I'm old enough and smart enough to make up my own mind. What can I do? And so they've started calling their senators, calling their congressmen.